Is your bird acting up? Are you having trouble bonding with them? Then maybe it's something in the environment that's causing it. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Parrot Teacher. I'm Dave and today I'm doing a video I've wanted to do for quite some time, but I haven't quite found the moment to film, and that is how much of a role the environment plays in your bird's behaviour and how much it can cause stressors and other impacts on how your bird acts and on their well-being. It's something that people often overlook. They often look at themselves or the bird, they blame the bird or they blame themselves, and while technically you are part of the environment, there's lots of other things that could be causing problems. So I wanted to list off some very common elements of the general environment, the general world that your parrot's in, and tell you about how they can potentially cause trouble for you and your parrot. Now, one of the first places me and Sophie look when we're doing consultations or looking at parrot behaviour problems, both for ourselves and our clients, is the environment in general. It is a great place to look. There's lots of things that make up the environment, and that's why I felt this video would be useful, so we can look at some individual bits and maybe people will be like, oh, maybe that's causing some trouble. The first thing I want to bring up is light and lighting. Now, let's talk about light in general. If your parrot has too much darkness or maybe not enough, that can cause some issues with behaviour, especially related to hormones. If your parrot gets no access to natural light, obviously that's going to mean they may not be getting enough vitamin D. It may also be stimulating their hormonal cycle or doing the opposite, where they're not actually exhibiting that behaviour. So look at the sort of lighting and the light cycle you are providing your parrot, because it can be a cause of behavioural issues. Also look at the type of lighting you're providing your parrot. Now, I'm not talking about UV lamps, you can provide them if you like, but I'm talking about the sort of bulbs you use and the like, because some bulbs have this very annoying flickering effect to parrots. We don't notice it because of the way our vision works, but to them it is very irritating and it could even cause anxiety in them. If you'd like to find out if your bulb is doing this, then just film it with your mobile on slow motion, and if it's constantly flickering, you know that may be an issue for your bird. We tend to recommend just plain white LED lights because they don't seem to have this effect on parrots. But yeah, think about the amount of light your bird's getting, the quality of the light, and also if anything you're using is annoying, because a lot of the time when you see excessive screaming, especially around bedtime in the evening, it can be the lamp that's causing it. The amount of space your parrot has, and that could be within their cage space or just their environment in general, the room in general. Having too small a cage space can be really problematic for your parrot and will cause problems. They won't want to go back in there, it will stress them out. If it's really cramped and there's a pair of them, it may again stimulate hormone breeding behaviours, which a lot of people do not want to see. When breeders want their parrots to breed, they will keep them in a small space and they will just bombard them with light. You don't want to replicate that in your own environment. Also, if you've got multiple birds and you find they're fighting and there's lots of trouble, the space could be a problem there. If you only have them in a small room, they haven't got their own sort of established areas, territories, because while there's no real dominant structure with parrots, they do have flock dynamics. So one flock may not necessarily like the other one. They may not want them coming near because that's their space, they're protecting it. So you want to look at the space you have, how you're utilising it, how much you can provide. And I know that's not always possible. I don't think we have the ideal environment for our parrots. We do a lot right for them and we do a lot to make them give them the best life we possibly can, but we still could even use more space. So look at the space you have available, provide as much as you can, and maybe rearrange it to try and make better use of it if there are any behavioural problems or fighting amongst different birds. Think about scary stimuli. Now, scary stimuli is quite a big, broad ranging environmental factor, which I'll talk about in other sort of subsections as well. But there could be loads of scary things in that environment that's affecting your parrot's behaviour. Something I love to bring up, because it's such a common one, is when individuals paint their nails. To us, it just looks like a lovely colour. To them, that could be glowing neon and be terrifying for them. That's a very quick environmental change of you that can cause a lot of anxiety to your parrot or make them want to bite you. Stuff that we don't find scary and may just be thinking, oh, you know what does it matter? Could be having a massive impact on them. They're only small. Even a macaw is a large parrot, but in proportion to us, they're quite small, so things can be scary. So look at your parrot's behaviour, look at what things in the environment may be scaring them or causing them worry, and you can potentially avoid some problems with behaviour before they even start. Now let's lead on from that directly with a couple of great examples. Furniture and ornaments. Ornaments can be very scary. Different ornaments or different pieces of furniture can either be very appealing to destroy or can be absolutely terrifying, and if you move them around or change them, that can be scary to your parrot. And obviously I'm not telling you to throw out all these ornaments and throw out all your furniture, but you can be mindful of how close you bring your parrot to them. You can be mindful of where they're positioned in the room. You can be mindful of when the parrot goes into the room, and also you can be mindful of doing some desensitization work with your parrot to prevent any issues. So when they do see these things or these things move, they're not panicking, they're not stressing, they're not just biting you out of fear. Furniture and ornaments are a big issue for a lot of people, but just making sure that environment's stable and also making sure that your bird isn't too worried about them can really pay you some dividends in the long run. Again, leading on, so I think it neatly leads on from the furniture and ornaments thing, is change and movements. You know, sudden movements, sudden changes, expecting your parrot to just adapt to it very quickly. They may not be able to, especially if they're a rescue or are anxious birds. You need to sometimes introduce changes early in the day, so by bedtime they're used to them. You need to get them used to changes, for example, introducing things slowly so they can see them and know they're not really something to worry about. And generally positively reinforcing when you make changes as well. Changes and sudden movements of things can cause aberrant behaviours in parrots. It's a kind of a known thing. It's kind of obvious with us. We don't sometimes like sudden changes that are scary in our environments, in our worlds. So why would we expect our parrots to be any different? Just because it doesn't scare us doesn't mean it doesn't scare them. They will be scared. And I think that's one of the problems with a lot of human interactions. A lot of people assume just because something doesn't bother them, it's not going to bother anyone else. And it's a complex thing, so let's not go into that. Just be aware of sudden movements, sudden changes, and try to be mindful of where you do them and when you do them. The environment immediately outside of their current area. So say for example they're in a room and there's a window or a large screen door there. What's happening outside there can impact their behaviour too, and can cause them fear and all sorts of other things, screaming. If there's crows coming outside constantly, that's something they would be scared of in the wild naturally. So if they're seeing that all the time, that's going to make them misbehave from our perspective. If there's other things going on, people moving around constantly, that may cause them to yell. The environment immediately outside of their environment can have a huge impact, and that leads on to my sort of, well, not really my final point, but kind of almost last point. That didn't really sound very good, but whatever. Noises and again light changes and movement. So sudden noises, airplanes are a big thing. Airplanes flying over can be very scary. Other bird noises, people yelling, all of these things can have an impact. Even if, for example, you're doing a training session in one room and your partner or whatever yells really loudly in another room, that can derail that training session. And again, this is to be taken with a pinch of common sense. You can't stop people from living their lives around you, but you can be mindful of how you do things. You can prepare yourself, you can get your bird used to these things so it doesn't bother them. I guess the point of this video is be aware of all these things that are changing the environment around your bird all the time that don't bother us because we're the ones initiating the change, but may bother them. Because if you are aware of them and you're preparing them for it and they're pretty well rounded as individuals and you're constantly working on decent and training, it's going to have much less of an impact, and you may see less problems with your parrot's behaviour, leading to less problems in your life as well. So as usual, any comments or questions, love to hear from you, but in the meantime, take care and see you later.